All right, so this is further to expand the idea of quick mask. Okay, um, Photoshop is designed to help make selections, right? There are multiple ways to do it. So I'm going to go ahead on this file. I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of the background. All right, turn that off, just so I have it. If I wanted to separate out this gentleman's head from the background, it seems like an easy task at first, right? So, for example, I may come in and use now Photoshop. Let me just show you, because Photoshop, this is the only way you used to be able to do an automatic selection, was the Magic Wand tool. Magic Wand tool is a piece of crap. Don't use it. I don't care what anybody says. It's almost useless. It was super useful way back in the day. All right, just so you know the way it works, you notice up at the top, okay, it works like other selection tools. You can add, subtract, or intersect with. It takes a point sample. You can tell it how many pixels to try and select. Okay, and the tolerance is how close to the pixels that you're selecting it will select. So if I click on the background, you notice it selects everything that's within 32, right, of black, okay, or whatever this darkest color is. It's pretty close to black. Okay, you also hold down Alt and try and deselect. If I do that, it deselects everything. Okay, so the Magic Wand is not great. We are going to cover the Quick Selection tool here in the next file, right? And the Quick Selection tool is great. It is also where the Magic Wand is. Okay, you have your Object Selection and your Quick Selection tool. The Object Selection tool, the way it works is you click and drag, okay, or try and draw where your object is. It just did a terrible job of that. Okay, and it will try and select that object. You'll notice this does a much better job than the Magic Wand does. Again, because the Magic Wand is a pile of garbage, okay, and no one loves it. So even its mother thinks it's ugly. All right. So now what I could do is it did a pretty decent job getting that. Okay, and I can come in and I can add to the selection. So let me deselect. The other one is your Quick Selection tool, which I will show you here. The Quick Selection tool works by clicking and dragging, and it will try and select in the area that you're dragging through. Okay, so it is similar to the Object Selection tool, except it just works a little bit at a time. Now, again, Photoshop only does what you tell it to, so if I click and drag out here, it says, oh, you want to select out here. Hold down Alt, deselect out there. Okay. If I was going to use this tool here, I would probably select the background rather than the face. That's easier to do. Okay. So this does a pretty decent job. Okay. Now, here is what we're going to do. I'm going to click and drag through, make an OK selection. That's pretty close. Up at the top, you'll notice there are a couple of buttons. You can try and select your subject, which we've already done, and there's Select and Mask. If you click on Select and Mask, it's going to bring you into a dialog box. Right? On the right-hand side are going to be your options. Underneath View, right here, you'll see you can view your selection without having to make the selection first, okay, as to what it's going to look like. All right, this is really powerful. So for example, if I want to see what it's going to look like, in this case, I think on red it's easiest to see. You'll notice on the left-hand side here, you still have access to some of your tools. Okay, you have your Quick Selection tool still, so you'll notice how I missed a chunk of hair here, right? Well, if I come and click and drag right through here, right, I can make that a selection. And a little bit of the ear there, click and drag. And I can make a pretty decent selection minus a few hairs. Okay, Photoshop has really gotten a whole lot better at this than it used to be. Okay, that said, it'll get you 90% of the way there, not 100% of the way there. Okay, now right here is your Refine Edge brush tool. We're going to use this more in the next one. Your Refine Edge brush tool does an okay job. Photoshop still needs some work on it. Part of the problem is that it makes really soft selections. Okay, so if you have a crisp edge like this ear, right, there's no fuzziness there. If I use my Refine Edge tool, okay, and pull it along, you see how it's letting some of the mask through, okay, because it's trying to soften the edge. It sometimes works on hair. in this case, I don't think it's going to work very well. Okay. You also have your brush tool, your object selection tool, right? Your lasso tool. So if I wanted to come in and like literally make, let's say I wanted to add to here, right? I could literally come in and select in there, and it's going to go ahead and add. Okay. Now, all along the side here are a lot of options we're not going to cover quite yet. We're just playing with the basics. Right here, your global refinements, though, and if you click the arrow, it'll drop down. You'll notice you can smooth your mask. Okay, so you see here at the bottom how it's smoothing the edges out. You can also feather, which is it softens the edge. Okay, now, and you can also increase your contrast, which makes the edge harder. Okay, so if I pull the feather over, you see how it's making it like a vignette. But if I pull the contrast over, it sharpens it back out. Okay. So you can play with this a little bit. Down at the bottom here, we have output to selection. Okay. Or from your drop down, you can make a new layer mask, a new layer with layer mask. All right, there's a lot of things you can do. I usually do a new layer with layer mask, but in this case, because I'm going to work a little bit more with quick mask, I'm going to go ahead and output to selection, hit OK. So I've made a decent selection. I'm going to enter quick mask mode by hitting Q. Okay, and you'll notice like there are little bits of stuff that I'm missing. Okay, so if I want to, at this point, what I can do is I can either come in with my brush, okay, and I can try and paint. Oops, I've got my selection tool, my bad. Brush, there we go. I can either try and paint this in, which is hard to do, okay, but there's another tool that you can use. It doesn't have a keyboard shortcut because it's not used very often. That's your smudge tool. It's directly underneath your paint bucket tool. You have your blur tool, sharpen tool, and smudge. Okay, with the smudge tool, don't use this. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to grab a hard round. Okay. Some people try and use this to shade when they're digitally painting. It looks awful, and I wish they wouldn't. Okay. But what I can do is I can grab and pull my mask here along, or my quick selection. Okay, my strength up here is how much I pull. So if I set it to 100%, if I click and drag, you see how much I can pull there. I have found usually 70 is the most that I need it at. Okay. I can quite literally pull and then push as much and as many of this bits of hair as I want. Okay. So I'm not going to do the whole thing. Okay. Just because nobody wants to sit here and watch me for 10 minutes. I don't want to sit here and watch me for 10 minutes do this. Okay. But when you're making this type of a selection, right, it's a lot easier, for example, get this stray bit of hair here, just to use the smudge tool and push it into shape and to grab that. Okay. Exit quick mask mode. I'm going to make a layer mask. Right, let me make a new layer, pull it behind, fill it with an obnoxious color. Here, make it even more obnoxious. Okay, and you can kind of really see what you have. And you see how I've got this little bit of hair here and up here? Okay, so this is a really good way between these tools to make good selections when you don't have a nice, super clean edge. All right, so if you click on the Refine Edge file, you will notice here, right, if you were trying to make a selection as normal, this would be terrible and you would hate me for forever and ever and ever. Okay, and rightly so. So we're going to go ahead and go back into our object selection tool. Now what I'm going to do is draw right around the kitten. Give Photoshop a second here. It does an okay job selecting, right? You notice I got a little bit of, let me go ahead and unlock this layer, make a copy first, of the carpet here, right? And you notice it's missing a lot of this stuff up here. So if I enter my selected mask, here's one where, let me go ahead and put it on black. You'll notice that's not a great cutout, okay? Photoshop, again, does a lot better with hair than it used to. Here is where the Refine Edge brush tool, okay, which is your second option down, is really going to come in useful. Okay, so if I click and drag along here, let me make it a little bit bigger, and it works best in small chunks, right? And I'm clicking and dragging out where the fur would be. you notice Photoshop does a pretty good job detecting where this fur is. It's not going to be 100%, all right, but it's going to get me a whole lot more. Okay, right along the top here. Where I don't want to hit it is like right along this here. Because if I do that, I'm going to lose some stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to click and drag right along the edge. Like I said, it usually takes a couple of times. I can also come back in with my quick select tool and click inside of the cat right kind of to the edge there. That'll help. What will also help too, oddly enough, underneath your output settings is if you click on decontaminate colors, okay, and set it to 100%, you'll notice it actually does a better job of selecting the fur. I don't know why that is. It's just an odd thing. Okay, so when I've made an OK selection, right, I'm going to click and drag in here. Okay, I'm looking to make sure I don't have any big obvious chunks missing. I'm going to go ahead and output. Now when you click decontaminate colors, it forces you to do a new layer with layer mask, which is fine. That's what we want. I'm going to hit OK. Okay, it's made me a new layer with a layer mask. All right, I'm going to make a new layer, drag it behind, fill it with an obnoxious color because I want to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, on my layer mask now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your brush, okay, and I want you to come in between your brush tool. Okay, remember, black conceals, white reveals. Okay, I want you to go ahead and try and refine these edges. Now, here is where, like a softer edge brush, oops, I'm going to switch it to white. Right along where this ear is going to help. And a lot of times it helps to go a little bit too far and then pull it back out. Okay, so that looks too fuzzy up close, but you notice when I pull it back out how much better that looks. Okay, now you can do the same thing with a layer mask you do with quick select. Right, I can take my layer mask and by using my smudge tool, okay, you notice if I pull along, I'm pushing my layer mask out and I can pull it back in. So depending on how sharp you want to make this, okay, you can pull that fur in and out. There is no 100% way to do this. Okay, a lot of this stuff just has to be done by hand. So I want you to make the best selection possible you can on the kit, and then go ahead and put the poor sleepy kitty somewhere nice. Okay, preferably not like a volcano, right? Just so we're clear, right, on this file, I want you to separate out the head from the background, and I want to see the hair done as nicely as possible. Okay, and on this file, I want to see the kitten separated and placed on something. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to email me.